In today's episode, we're talking about building business brands, personal brands, the difference between them, and which one's more important for you. NextWaveDV is the story of our journey growing Creative Edge Productions from a tiny studio in my basement to one of the leading video marketing agencies in the Midwest. So join us on our continuing mission of mastering video marketing. Welcome back to the Mastering Video Marketing Podcast. I'm Tony Reale.
And I am Ben Carlson.
That you are. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Tony.
We are going to talk today about personal brand versus business brand.
Ooh, this is one that's been coming up with our client meetings.
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting because I think some people, there are people that don't even know the difference between it. So we should probably address that first. But then it can be really challenging, you know, even with our clients, we find there isn't just a one-size-fits-all answer to that.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the different approaches and different scenarios where one, for your business or for what you do, one might be more important than the other. So let's talk about the difference between personal brands and business brands. Really what it boils down to fundamentally is, you know, your business brand is, of course, the business, first of all, branding. Let's just talk about that. Branding, a lot of people think that, you know, it always cracks me up when I see people like say, I do branding photography, or I do branding logo design, or I do I do branding. I'm like, that isn't a service. There's a lot of people that say that they do branding. And I'm like, you don't get to choose what your brand is.
Yeah.
You can choose how you can actively try and steer your brand in a certain direction.
Sure.
But fundamentally, branding is what people think of when they think of your company or think of you. And so that is not something that you can specifically change.
Right. Not like a logo, not like an icon.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, there are things you can do to steer in certain directions. There's ways that you can, where you can kind of create different content or different just visual media, whether it is your logo, whether it is your color scheme, all those kind of things can slowly steer your brand in a different direction. If I tell you Walmart or McDonald's or Burger King or Apple, there are going to be things that pop into your head. You might think clean and sleek for Apple. We even joke like what, McDonald's, back in the 90s versus McDonald's today is a very different brand, know. It's like McDonald's is like the company that grew up into middle age and then like suddenly can't have fun colors and things anymore. But the reason McDonald's did that is because they wanted to be taken more seriously. They wanted to compete with like Starbucks and stuff like that. Yeah. So they have slowly steered their brand more in that direction. Now, does that mean that people suddenly say, "Oh, I think of McDonald's in the same way that I think of Starbucks or a higher end company"? Or does it just do people look at that and think that it's a sorry attempt at trying to modernize your brand?
Yeah, and that's a hard thing with branding is, like you said, you don't get complete control over it because it's people's perception of who you are and what your company is and stands for. And so you may be doing everything right or what you think is right, and something comes up and it's like, I don't know. Stanley, I think, is a great example of this, where it was for a long time, it was just bland camping gear mugs, and you would see construction guys out there with their Stanley mug, and their sales were I think they were back in like 2019, their sales were like 7 million or 75 million. I could have these numbers wrong, so please feel free to fact check. It was either 75 or 40. It was a good number, but not great. And then they went to the Tumblr. And they're like, let's add some color. And it started to go up. And then there was a video that went viral of a Stanley Cup that got stuck in a car that was on fire, and there was still ice in it after they put out the car. And granted, that contributed to a larger growth. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna knock anything from the Stanley people, but they went from either the 45 million, 75 million to $750 million with this new product launch, because the perception was able to shift. And so they redesigned it. Yes, they put a lot of effort into creating this new product, but it really wasn't until the public perception shifted that they saw that growth.
Absolutely. So now that we've defined branding, now let's talk about the differences between the two, like personal and business. I mean, it's fairly fundamental, but a business branding is what you do at your company level, and then personal branding is branding you as an individual. So you could be a solopreneur, you could be a contract worker, you could be somebody that's trying to make their own money on their own. or you could be a part of a business and realizing the importance of branding yourself. So, for example, we're going to talk about Creative Edge and NextWaveDV, and you know, when I started Creative Edge back 15 years ago now, I was trying to decide what do I want to do? Should it be Tony Reale Studios? Like, what do I want to call it? And very early on, I decided I didn't want it to be about me because there's two reasons for that. First of all, I felt that was limiting. It meant that then it is just me as the brand. Also, if I'm working with people like Ben or my past partners like Sean and Jimmy, you know, is it their desire to necessarily be working on a company that is very, very obviously focused on a single person? Yeah. So I wanted Creative Edge to be bigger than one person. The other side of it too was just simply like I felt I can say the sentence Creative Edge does amazing work and feel much more confident than saying Tony Reale does amazing work.
Which you do, for the record.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But like in my own branding and marketing, it felt easier for me to pump up the brand of Creative Edge and let that be whatever it needed to be instead of just focusing on myself. If I need to pull back and, you know, be more, you know, as I've transitioned personally from just being a one-man band into a company and now running an agency and all the things that we do, yeah. I've realized the importance of getting better as a business owner and as a CEO. And so I've been taking like reading MBA courses and things like that to try to get better as a business owner, not just as a cinematographer
Sure.
or as a marketer and those types of things. So there are times where I need to step back in the role of, I don't have to do everything. Like we've got a great team of people here that can be a part of it. They don't need to say, I need Tony. We've got amazing people that can do it. So again, having the agency and the company name not be just around a single person, I think is important. That said, it was, a few years back, we've done NextWaveDV for years. I've loved doing it, but we never did it with a consistency for the idea of growing Creative Edge as a brand. We did it more as a thank you to the community. I mean, I'm self-taught in what I learned. I went on YouTube and forums and did a lot of things over the years to learn how to do cinematography and get into video production. I mean, if you guys have followed my journey at all, you'll see the stuff that I basically what happened when I started the YouTube channel is like I spent months researching depth of field adapters, 24 frames per second camera, things like that, that I, again, back in the day were fairly new, back in the early 2000s. And so when I would learn something, I would just kind of regurgitate it down into a 10-minute video. And there are people that like that because it saved them months of research. Yeah. And that's what NextWaveDV was for a while. It was just a place for me to kind of give back. And now there's tons of people doing that type of content. And so it's a lot more readily available. And I didn't want to add to the noise, but I felt like for us as we move forward with Creative Edge, we realized the importance of, again, establishing our expertise at a consistent level. Because, one of the big things that we say a lot is, how can you expect anybody to know that you exist if there's no content for them to come up
Absolutely.
with or discover you with? And so that's important. I remember when we hadn't done content for a while because we'd just been so darn busy. And then we started regularly, consistently posting content. And somebody commented and they're like, why should I listen to you? Like, you're most of your YouTube channel is NAB coverage and some older, filmmaking training. Yeah. And I mean, they were right in the sense of like, we know what we've done.
Sure.
We know the journey that we've gone on. We know all the content we've produced, these hundreds of thousands of dollar projects that we've worked on. But we didn't have time to share that and do any sort of content or social proof marketing.
Or at least you weren't intentional with sharing it. And we talked about this even recently. We were having this conversation that, the tricky thing with that is we were seeing output. We were seeing the videos. You were seeing, hey, we have a final thing that we're going to do. Cool. So that little check mark of like, yep, we have accomplished this thing. We have shared this thing. We have created this thing. It was met. That need was fulfilled. Yep. But now that social media is changing so much, that's not enough to feed in order to grow that brand.
Yeah, and that's why we talk about like social proof and content marketing being such an important part of your marketing, because that allows people to understand, what it is that you do and the success stories that you've had and all those types of things. Because if if you went to our website or to our Facebook page, you would have seen something added to our portfolio. You would have seen the new project happen, but you wouldn't have gotten to come and experience it and know what that process was like.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have gotten to hear the story of like what the journey that we took these customers through.
Sure.
So through our content marketing, that allowed us to really start to share with our audience and showcase like our expertise, our competencies. But then it also allowed us to be able to experiment as well, because we're a video production company and a marketing agency. We got to experiment then with the platforms and see, all right, this is what's working better. This is, as we've constantly revised our podcast and our viewership has gone up, this has allowed us to be like, okay, these are the things that have worked incredibly well. So now we can now go to our clients and say, all right, instead of you having to spend 6 months to a year figuring this out, we can immediately give you the best format that we've personally discovered.
So what was the shift then, would you say, was it just a decision to do it, or like what did you somehow find more time in the day to start posting, or was it just the intentionality of we're going to make the time?
I mean, in all honesty, like I follow a lot of other marketers and influencers, your Gary V's and your Alex Hormozzi's that have had success from it. Not that we're trying to replicate or duplicate the work that they've done, but we recognize that a lot of success just comes from being consistent and creating expectations from your audience. Again, another thing that we say all the time is that, people are looking for answers to questions. And if you don't have those answers, they're going to go somewhere else for those answers. Yep. And so, if it doesn't matter how smart you are, you could be the smartest person in the room. But if you don't open your mouth and actually share your insights and somebody else does, then that person seems like they're the smartest person in the room. Right. And so, you got that, and you don't always get the people. A lot of people are like, well, we'll just, when customers call us, we're happy to answer the question. Yeah. You don't get that choice anymore. You don't get the choice that they will come to you. You have to be following the patterns that they are doing. If they're Googling stuff, it needs to be available on Google. If they are YouTubing and doing searches on there, if they're on TikTok, I don't do TikTok. I don't twerking and all this kind of, no. I'm sorry, but you need to be on TikTok if that's where your audience is. Correct. One of the processes we take our customers through is what we call our target audience discovery meeting, and then we put together a whole market research package for them. And we take that becomes our Bible on how we approach their marketing. And we tell our audience, or our customers, I said, this will tell you in the research that we do where your audience is living. And I don't care what you think. I don't care. We had one CEO of a company that was like, I don't think, our audience uses social media because I don't use social media. I just use XM radio and that's it. And I'm like, you could be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah. But that's what the market research allows us to do. Yeah. We need to be present where our audience is present. Yep. So from a business, branding standpoint, at a high level, what you want to be doing is showing off the brand you want to portray. We had a customer that is a spa, and there's some beautiful imagery on their website, gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous. And when we first met with them, we looked at their website and we got the vibe that they were kind of this very European, calm, stoic, tranquil. Yes. And when we met with them, they're like, "No, we're fun and light. We want that. We want people to just have a good time." Energy, yeah. And I'm like, "Well, okay, the imagery on your website is nothing like that. Yeah. There's not a single person on the website. It's just empty rooms. They're very beautifully lit and everything like that. But there's no energy. There's no vibrancy. There's no happy faces, smiling people, nothing." And so one of the big things that we started doing is like, okay, if that's the brand you want to be, that we need to be portraying that. So we started making video content that was more in line with the brand that they wanted. Yeah. And again, like that perception that they had, in their mind, this is who we are. But there was no consistency with that in the messaging, in the style, and everything that was already out there. And
so the perception from the public was, oh, this is just a very stoic, tranquil. Maybe stoic, it wasn't bad. No. And I want to be very clear about that. There are many spas and many places that thrive on being that escape, that getaway, and they still are, but their perception of who they were was not matching up with the public perception, and that's where branding really comes in. Because once you can start shifting that focus, once you can start showing the Stanley Cup in a burning vehicle and start showing who and what you're capable of, then the public perception will start to change and your brand will start to see the effects of it.
Because one of the biggest important factors in branding is also establishing your UVP, your unique value proposition. And sometimes you just sell a widget that everybody else sells. So how do you differentiate yourself? That can be part of your brand. Is like we're more friendly, we're more artistic, we're more creator focused, we're more for moms, we're for dads, we're for kids. Like those types of things are important. So
shout out one of my favorite brands, Shinesty. Free shout out to them. It's where I got my St. Patrick's Day leprechaun suit. Or four-leaf clover suit. They sell underwear. They men's and women's underwear along with other novelty parties and like cool party glasses and fanny packs. But it is a heavily saturated market. If you go on Amazon or Alibaba, I mean, you can get their similar things all over. But they have purposefully gone in with an irreverent comedy sort of approach to their everything. They pride themselves on not taking themselves too seriously. And it elevates. So their brand, while they may sell undies, their brand is so much more. So free shout out to Shinesty. Go check them out. This is an unpaid plug.
Nice. So let's talk about the personal side of the branding. Then.
Yeah.
Because we talked a lot about the business aspects. So when do you want to focus on personal branding? And not to say that we're the most amazing, but I think we've really found a good balance for ourselves because we still push Creative Edge Productions and we still have our own branding that we do there. But like one of the things that I've done as I've taken over more and more responsibility in the company is to kind of step forward and be more of a consistent face to the company. For a while when I was younger, again, 15 years ago, I was in my mid-20s and I didn't know what I was doing. So I let Jimmy, my former partner, be a bigger face of the company because he was older and I thought, he added more legitimacy to the brand in that way. But there are aspects of an experience that I had that he didn't have. Yeah. And, he was from an older school of thought. So like some of the more modern marketing techniques were things that he just wasn't as familiar with. So I started stepping forward as, he was walking out of the company to be more of the face of it and to be more consistent with it. And I've gotten better. I've gotten more comfortable in front of the camera. I've started to develop my own voice and my own style. And, and we have an audience that, granted, I've been doing this type of content for over 15 years, but I didn't do it with the same purposefulness that I have in the past, like 2 or 3 years. And then also, again, purposefully saying this is the brand and what we want to be known for.
Sure.
Because we can also I can be sharing lots of insights about filmmaking training, and that will help people that are like us, competition, if you want to call it that. But, there's plenty of work out there for all of us. Yeah. But the point being is we also wanted to create content that was helping our target demographic of customers. So people that are looking for help to build their business and build their brands. So rather than completely pivot away from the filmmaking training, we've kind of widened our audience to try and encompass both of those. So if you are a filmmaker, hopefully there are things that you're learning from this, whether it's storytelling techniques, whether it's how to market yourself, how to build your own brand. But if you aren't a filmmaker, hopefully there's content that is also helpful to you because whether you may never own a camera or pick up and shoot your stuff on your own, you might want to work with another company. And hopefully our content shows you our competency and our ability to then be an option to consider.
Or just know what questions to be asking as you're working with those different creatives. Yeah,
exactly. And so from personal branding, so the big question is, when would you do one over the other? Yeah. I mean, my argument would be both. Both are vitally important.
Yes,
and both need to be focused on uniquely and differently. But a good example, one of our clients owns a weight loss company, and she's a former doctor, and so she's been doing this kind of stuff for years. She shifted into weight loss a few years back when she herself lost a ton of weight and found a system that worked well for her. And then she started helping clients with it, and they found a ton of success with it as well. And so she's had this great model, but she's also at a point in her life where she wants to do this for a while, but eventually she wants to retire from it and potentially sell the business. So this is a unique scenario where we need to be focusing on both simultaneously.
Yeah.
Her personality and her brand is really important. So personal branding is essential with that, but we can't make it all about her. Otherwise, when it comes time to sell the company, they won't be, they'll be like, well, you're most of the brand.
Yeah.
I can't, there's nothing to sell.
I can't replicate that.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing. If I was so ingrained into the brand of Creative Edge that like, if first of all, people wouldn't hire us if Tony didn't show up on a shoot, which happens most of the time. But like, if they desperately needed me to be there, or if again we walk away, we step away, and so much of Creative Edge is the way that I light and the way that I aim the camera and all that kind of stuff. If that's all that Creative Edge is, then it becomes harder and harder to then make the company be its own if it was something that you wanted to sell at some point.
Is there a scenario in which that's okay?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't plan on retiring. I say that now. It's easy to say at a young age, but like I also recognize that I'm not probably going to be full blown on productions the rest of my life.
Hauling camera gear, yeah.
So whether that's me just showing up as hiring a bunch of grips and crew, and then just showing up as a cinematographer and pointing at where things go, that's one direction that I could take it. But if I decide to kind of go further and further up the level of CEO and then be having like crews and things like that, that is a direction that we can also go as well. I'm not super worried about it right now, but it is something that out of the corner of my eye, I'm kind of looking down the road to see like, all right, which direction do we want to steer this? What does a long-term viable business model look like? And so, I think it's always important to be looking at where do you want to be 5, 10, 20 years from now, and make sure that you're putting things in front of you that can get you there. If you have a business model right now that you recognize is not sustainable indefinitely, then slowly start, this is a completely different topic, but slowly start finding ways, either do the research. For us, again, it was as a video production company, we love doing shoots. We still get to do a ton of them, of course, but we were struggling finding irrelevancy when our clients were just kind of hemming and hawing, like, do I like them or do I like them?
Yeah.
Do I want that concept or that concept? We were very much a commodity at that point.
Yeah.
And we wanted to steer away from that and become a unique product in and of itself, something that you couldn't compare apples to apples on. And by tying in the marketing services that we do, developing the strategy and incorporating all that kind of stuff, it isn't just about like, do you like our video concept? It's, do you want to work with us to help us develop an entire strategy for growing your company? And video just happens to be the tool that we use to showcase the strategy that we develop.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really perfectly there, where branding is elevating yourself from a commodity to something that people seek out, and for a specific reason. And you might not be everyone's cup of tea. If you really hone in on what you are, who you are, and your perception, where people are like, I want that style, I want this thing, I want the LV on my Louis Vuitton bag, I don't want Coach or whatever it may be, that's where you elevate your branding status. And you go from just being another option, we're comparing apples to apples, and we're saying, no, I want to compare apples to a Mercedes. And that's really how you differentiate. That's good. I like it.
So as we land the plane here, let's just talk about ways to be able to do both.
Yeah.
So business branding at a high level is typically, we for our clients, typically we'll have what we call our flagship videos for them. And this is content that, I say this is the stuff that people want to see when they look for your brand.
Yeah.
They do a search on YouTube or Google or whatever like that. They should come across this first. The worst thing that you can do is have somebody else owning your brand.
Right.
Like a review of a product. And I hate this product.
Yep.
It's horrible. Like, your content should be the first thing that people come across.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to have a good, well-designed, highly polished flagship video or a series of flagship videos. But then when you go into content marketing, that stuff can be a little bit more rough around the edges.
Sure.
It's fine. Shoot on your cell phone or whatever like that. Let the content match the platform that it's on at a better level. And this is also a good area then to potentially do more personal branding.
Correct.
Again, when we do a lot of our content marketing, it isn't creative. You don't see you see Creative Edge on my hat. And we mention Creative Edge, but it isn't like this is a Creative Edge Productions thing everywhere. It's about Ben and Tony, and that's why NextWaveDV is its own brand in and of itself, because we didn't want it to be too weighed down by Creative Edge Productions or whatever like that. There's been ebbs and flows. I mean, when we started the arcade, we shared some of that content on NextWaveDV as well. Yeah, that wasn't just Creative Edge Productions.
Yeah.
So, content marketing is that better place to really build your brand and experiment. Let that be a place to succeed and fail and test out things and see what works really, really well. In your personal branding, you're showing off your personal expertise. Now, if that personal expertise ties into the company, great, mention that. I'm a part of this company. It's, yes, you could hire Tony Reale. Yes, you could hire Ben Carlson, but we're a part of Creative Edge. And so that's the whole brand and part of that too.
Right.
So if at a base level you're looking where to start, I would say make sure that you have flagship content that is there for your business, and that should be polished. We always recommend have some polish to that type of content because people want that. It's like when I go into a department store, I want to buy a new washer and dryer. Like, sell me. I want to be sold. I want to hear the whole this one's better because it has this feature than that one. But if I'm not in that mood, no, I don't want to be sold to. I don't want to. I don't want to watch a sales video if I'm not in that mood. So that's why we also say in your content marketing, don't let that be too salesy. Let it be valuable and let it have insights that can actually answer people's questions. That is, fundamentally, if you wouldn't watch this content, then you're doing something wrong.
You shouldn't expect anyone else to. Yep.
Exactly. So what is content that you typically enjoy watching? What's valuable to you? Are you you like watching people crush things in hydraulic presses or
very much so
build stuff with epoxy?
Yes, very much so.
So not that you have to watch or make those types of videos, but think about why you watch those videos, and that type of content is engaging and interesting for you to enjoy. That's because you're typically then creating. It's just captivating. It's interesting. If they suddenly had an ad about here, this hydraulic press costs $50,000, and this is I don't know what they cost. That shows you how much I know that type of stuff. But if they have here it's this much, and okay, immediately think about how quickly you would tune out.
Or even if they started going into the technical specifics of this 2-ton press has a rating capacity. No.
It can crush tennis balls even faster.
I just want to see it do foam and let it shoot out. That's all I care about.
Exactly. Yep. So again, think of it that way. Make sure that that's the content that you're producing, and that there is value in that. So the value can be either educational or entertaining. Again, those hydraulic presses, they're fundamentally entertaining. That's what you're doing there. Educational, of course, is giving insights and showing your expertise in there. So at that baseline level, that's a great place to start. You want to go further than that? Well, watch more of our content, and we'll gladly give you some ideas in that regard.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to subscribe. Leave any comments, questions down below. We'd love to answer them.
You ask, we answer. We didn't get around to one this time because it was a really jam-packed episode, but stay tuned for future ones of those. And definitely, leave comments below because we're happy to address those. We'll try to answer comments directly then, or we might feature it in an episode.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.